Good morning, students. Good morning, students. So how are you doing today? All right, welcome to class. Today we'll continue our discussion on types of poetry, beginning with the sonnets. The sonnets. The sonnet. The sonnet can be defined as a poem of 14 lines written in an iambic pentameter. The sonnet can be defined as a poem of 14 lines written in iambic pentameter. We have two main types of sonnets. Two types of sonnets. We have the Italian sonnet. We have the Italian sonnet. If you don't call it Italian sonnet, you can call it the Petrarchan sonnet. The Petrarchan sonnet. The Italian sonnet or the Petrarchan sonnet. Another type of the sonnet is the English sonnet. The English sonnet, also known as the Shakespearean sonnet or the Elizabethan sonnet. The Italian sonnet, as the name suggests, originated from Renaissance Italy. Originated from Renaissance Italy. From Renaissance Italy. Originated from Italy during the Renaissance. Originated from Renaissance Italy. Renaissance is spelled capital R E N A I S A N C E. Renaissance. Renaissance Italy, or Italy during the Renaissance. It is also named after its Italian originator by name Francesco Petrarch. Francesco Petrarch. Francesco Petrarch. Francesco Petrarch. Petrarch is spelled Petrarchan. CH is only when you want to make it an adjective that you add the AN. So CH, that's where it ends. Petrarch. Francesco Petrarch. This sonnet has 14 lines. The Italian sonnet has 14 lines, written in iambic pentameter. Structurally, it has two parts. As can be denoted by the rhyme scheme. Structurally, it has two parts, as can be denoted by the rhyme scheme. Structurally, the Italian sonnet has two parts, as can be denoted from the rhyme scheme. It is made up of the first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. It's made up of the first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. It's made up of the first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. It has the first 8 lines and the last 6 lines. The first 8 lines is known as the octave. And the last 6 lines are called sestet. So it is made up of an octave and a sestet. 8 lines followed by 6 lines. And it has the rhyme scheme. ABBA. For the octave, the rhyme scheme for the octave is ABBA. And then the rhyme scheme for the sestet is CDC. It can also be CDE, or any other format. It can also be CDE, or any other format. That means the rhyme scheme for the sestet varies, whereas the rhyme scheme for the octave is constant. The rhyme scheme for the octave is ABBA. That's for the 8 lines. The rhyme scheme for the sestet is CDC, or CDE, or any other format. So it is in the structure of the rhyme scheme that we notice the structural uniqueness of the Petrarchan sonnet. It's a rhyme scheme that gives the structure away, but because all the lines are written in one stanza format, right? So you won't see it being divided. You won't see the first 8 lines followed by the last 6 lines. No, it will be in one stanza format, all 4 times, but it is the rhyme scheme that will give away the structure. So you have to take note of that. The English sonnet. The English sonnet is made up of 3 quatrains and a couplet. 3 quatrains and a couplet. The English sonnet is made up of 3 quatrains and a couplet. That means a couplet. C-O-U-P-L-E-T, couplet. C-O-U-P-L-E-T, couplet. 3 quatrains and a couplet. A quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines. So you have that in 3 places. That will give you 12 lines. And then you have the final two lines that we call couplets, right? You have the final two lines called couplets. That makes it 14 lines. So the English sonnet has 3 quatrains. It's made up of 3 quatrains and a couplet, and has the rhyme scheme. It has the rhyme scheme. It has the rhyme scheme A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. It has the rhyme scheme A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G G. That is the rhyme scheme for the English sonnet. And again, the structure of the sonnet is given away by the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme that gives away the structure of the sonnet. The 3 quatrains will be seen in A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and the final couplet is seen in G, G. Right? Now, it should be noted that the English sonnet was imported from Italy during the Renaissance. The English sonnet was imported from Italy during the Renaissance. Some English writers traveled to continental Europe at the time. Some English writers went to Europe, continental Europe at the time, and saw the sonnet in Italy and brought back the form to England. One of them is Thomas Watt. Another is Henry Howard. Thomas Watt. Watt is spelled W-Y-A-T-T. Thomas Watt. And Henry Howard. Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey. Henry Howard. Henry Howard. Howard is spelled H-O-W-A-R-D. Henry Howard. The Earl of Surrey. So they are the courtiers, the English gentlemen who went to Italy in the Renaissance and saw the sonnet form and then brought it back to England. And in the course of practicing them, they altered the form from how it was practiced in Italy to the English form that we know today. Although some of them started by practicing it the same way the Italians wrote theirs. Now, the subject matter of the sonnet is usually love. The subject matter of the sonnet is usually love. The subject matter of the sonnet is usually love. The main subject matter of the sonnet is love. Love, L-O-V-E. L-O-V-E. In fact, the sonnet is called a love song. The sonnet is a love song. It's a lyrical poem about love. The emotions expressed in the sonnet, which makes it a lyrical poem, usually revolves around love. The emotions expressed in the sonnet, which usually makes it a lyrical poem, revolves around what? Around love. So the sonnet is a love song. All right? And It is usually the mundane love between man and woman. Usually the mundane love between the man and the woman. The mundane love between the man and the woman. Mundane is spelled M-U-N-D-A-N-E. Mundane love between the man and the woman. And most times, this love is usually expressed in its unrequited form. Most times, this love is usually expressed in its unrequited form. Okay? It's not an ideal love. It is one that is unrequited. All right? Unrequited. Unrequited is spelled UNREQUITTED. Love that is not returned. So in the poem, we normally see the male persona bemoaning the fact that the person he loves will not love him back. The person he loves will not love him back. And from there, he deploys many persuasion strategies to get the lady to accept him. From there, he normally deploys many persuasion strategies to get the lady to accept him, which would raise other themes in the poem. For instance, he will point out to the lady that time for her is going, and that she needs to make a decision soon so that time will not pass her by. Right? Would also remind her of the fact that she needs to have her own child. So she needs to get married and stop wasting time by not accepting his love proposal or delaying the acceptance, as it were. So in this way, the poem usually raises the carpe diem theme. The sonnet usually has the theme of the carpe diem. Carpe diem is spelled C-A-R-P-E. C-A-R-P-E. Diem is spelled D-I-E-M. D-I-E-M, it's Latin for seize the moment or seize the day. Carpe diem is Latin for seize the moment or seize the day. Seize the moment or seize the day, where you spell seize as S-E-I-Z-E. S-E-I-Z-E. See, that illustrates the theme of carpe diem, which is a Latin expression that means seize the moment or seize the day. Right? At other times, the sonnet can raise other themes apart from love. Or, if you like, additional themes or sub-themes apart from the main theme of love or unrequited love. Love not returned. Love not compensated. So it could raise the theme of mortality, the theme of growing old and dying, the theme of mortality. Death is always staring you in the face. All right? You will grow old and you will die. Aging, right? The theme of time and change. As time passes, you don't stay still. You are bound to change. You are bound to grow. The theme of time and change. The theme of marriage. The need to have a child that will stand in for you when you grow old. The child is supposed to remind the lady of her youthful days. The child is supposed to remind the lady of her youthful days. Because at a particular point, the lady will grow old, but it's only the child that she had that will now remind her of how she used to look like, how beautiful she used to be when she was young. All right? So these are some of the themes that will be treated in the sonnet. So when we have our text, because I'll soon give out the text that we'll be studying, if the copy, everybody will have a copy and come to class. We'll read at least 1 or 2 sonnets to illustrate what we are saying. All right? Good. So we move on to the limerick. The limerick. The limerick. The limerick. The limerick. 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 The limerick. All right? The limerick is a short poem made up of 5 lines. The limerick is a short poem made up of 5 lines. Usually noted for its humorous and playfully sensual nature. Playfully sensual nature. Sensual. sensual. Sensual nature. It also has a distinctive rhyme scheme, which is AABBA. AABBA. You might be asked, what is the rhyme scheme of the limerick? It is AABBA. The limerick has a distinctive rhyme scheme, which is AABBA. Limerick is a short poem of 5 lines, noted for its humorous and playfully bawdy nature, playfully sensual nature, with the rhyme scheme AABBA. Okay? In the notes, I have a limerick about a limerick to exemplify the limerick. In the notes, I have a limerick that's about a limerick, which I want to use to exemplify the limerick. Right? So the poem, what I mean is that the poem is a limerick, but then that it is about a limerick. And I want you to do what? To use it to show you an example of a limerick. And so the first line goes, The limerick is furtive and mean. The limerick is furtive and mean. The limerick is furtive and mean. Furtive is spelled F-U-R-T-I-V-E. F-U-R-T-I-V-E. The limerick is furtive and mean. Mean is spelled M-E-A-N. That's first line. It terminates with a colon. That line terminates with a colon. Right? With a colon. You know your colon, right? Good. So the second line says, you must keep her in close quarantine. You must keep her in close quarantine. You must keep her in close quarantine. Quarantine. You must keep her in close quarantine. In close quarantine. Quarantine is spelled close. In close, C-L-O-S-E, close quarantine. Quarantine is spelled Q-U-A-R-A-N-T-I-N-E, quarantine. You remember your quarantine during the COVID-19, right? Good. Then that line terminates with a comma, right? The terminal mark is also very important in poetry. In fact, in poetry, we do not overlook anything, right? So the third line, or she sneaks to the slums, or she sneaks to the slums, or she sneaks to the slums, or she sneaks to the slums. Slums. She sneaks. Sneaks is spelled S-N-E-A-K. S. She sneaks to the slums. Slums, the slums of Lagos, for instance. You know the slums of Lagos? All right, the slums. S-L-U-M-S, slums. She sneaks to the slums. All right? There's no punctuation mark there because the line is flowing to the next. So the next line, the fourth line, and promptly becomes, and promptly becomes, and promptly becomes, and promptly becomes, and promptly becomes. There's no terminal mark for that line. Then we move on to the final line, the final line. Disorderly, drunk, and obscene. Disorderly, drunk, and obscene. Disorderly, drunk, and obscene. Disorderly, drunk, and obscene. Drunk, D-R-U-K, and obscene, obscene. O-B-S-C-E-N-E, obscene. So if you read the poem, let's just take from the first line. What's the first line? The limerick is furtive and mean. What's the second line? Keep her in close quarantine. Third line, or she sneaks to the slums. And promptly becomes what? Disorderly. Okay, so let's just take it. Let's take it again. One go. The limerick is furtive and mean. Must keep her in close quarantine. Or she sneaks to the slums. And obscene. All right. So that is a limerick that defines a limerick. That's the limerick that defines a limerick. The limerick defines the limerick. That limerick defines the limerick. So in it, you see all the attributes of the limerick. Funny, 5 lines, the rhyme scheme. For instance, okay, let's look at the rhyme scheme. The first line is A, mean. The second line is what? Quarantine. That's another A. Then the next line is what? Slam. That's B. The next one is what? Becomes again B. And then the final line of sin A. So A, B, B, A. Now, another thing that you need to note about the limerick is that it has a meter. The limerick has a meter. Another thing you need to note about the limerick is that it has a meter. That's a meter. Another thing you need to note about the limerick is that it has a meter. And the meter is iambic. The meter is anapestic meter. Anapestic meter. Anapestic. The meter is anapestic. A-N. A-N-A. P-A-E-S-T-I-C. A-N-A-P-A-E-S-T-I-C. Anapestic meter. What that means is that the distribution of stress and the pattern of distribution of stressed and unstressed syllables per line is 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. Excuse me. 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. That's an anapestic meter. Okay? So, it is in elements of poetry that you learn about meter. Okay? So that you'll be able to appreciate some of the points. So, the anapestic meter is 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. Now look at the ideal. The ideal. The ideal. The ideal. I-D-Y-double-L. I-D-Y-double-L. Ideal. I-D-Y-double-L. The ideal. Ideal. This term is synonymous with pastoral poetry. The term ideal is normally used to describe the nature and the texture of the pastoral poetry. The ideal is normally used to describe the basic, major characteristic, the essence of pastoral poetry. So that's why I've said the ideal is synonymous with pastoral poetry. Okay? The term ideal is synonymous with pastoral poetry because it is normally used to describe the basic essence of pastoral poetry. Essence of pastoral poetry. In the sense that it captures nature in its perfect form. It captures nature in its perfect form. It captures nature in its best moments, in its perfect form. So the pastoral poetry depicts the natural environment. The pastoral poetry depicts the natural environment in its idyllic form, in its idyllic state. The pastoral poetry depicts the natural environment in its idyllic state. I-D-Y-L-L-I-C. Idyllic state. Okay? Captures the natural environment in its idyllic state. So the pastoral poetry is one of the oldest types of poetry. The pastoral poetry is one of the oldest types of poetry, dating back to the classical period. Dating back to the classical period. Dating back to the classical period. Classical period. Period. It usually depicts shepherds. It usually depicts shepherds. Shepherds. Also known as pastors. Usually depicts shepherds, also known as pastors. Pastors. That's why your pastor is normally called a good shepherd. And you are the sheep and the flock that it takes care of. So the pastoral poetry usually depicts shepherds, or are known as pastors, living in a rustic environment, a rural environment, or a rustic environment. Rural environment. Rural is spelled R-U-R-A-N, or R-U-R-A-L. R-U-R-A-L, rural environment, or countryside. Rural environment or countryside. You can also call it rustic setting, R-U-S-T-I-C. R-U-S-T-I-C, rustic setting. So the pastoral poem usually depicts shepherds, also known as pastors, living in a rustic environment or a rural environment, all right? Taking care of their sheep. Taking care of their sheep. Taking care of their sheep. That is the major preoccupation of these shepherds. They live simple lifestyle than people from humble backgrounds who are devoted to their calling, which is taking care of their sheep. Of their sheep, right? You know, of course, you know that there's nothing like ships. So that you don't say taking care of their ships. All right? So taking care of their sheep. Right? Because the sheep is singular and plural sheep. Right? Good. So that is the major preoccupation of the shepherd. So in the pastoral poetry, what you will see is the depiction of the natural environment. All right? The mountains, the hills, the plains, the lake, the rivers, in its beautiful moments. All right? As beautiful, as perfect. And then in it, you find shepherds, people of humble background whose major occupation is taking care of the sheep. All right? Apart from that, they could also be found discussing their love lives, talking about their love life or engaging in their love activities. Another thing that the shepherds do in the rustic environment would be engaging in a singing competition. Engaging in a singing competition. Singing competition. S-I-N-G-I-N-G. Singing competition. All right? Singing competition. Another type of poetry that we want to look at is acrostic poetry. Acrostic poetry. Acrostic poetry. Acrostic poetry. A-C-R-O-S-T-I-C. So I spell poetry. A-C-R-O-S-T-I-C. Acrostic poetry. Acrostic poetry. Did you get that? Acrostic poetry is based on the letters of a particular word or group of words. Acrostic poetry is based on the letters of a particular word or groups of words or group of words. In other words, the initial letters of the poem usually spell a word. The initial letters of the poem usually spells a word. The initial letters of the poem usually spells a word. When put together, when put together, when considered together, when put together. So, in the following examples, we will try to write a poem whose initial letters will spell the words poems and poetry. Poems and poetry. So let us take the first one. First line, personal thoughts. First line, personal thoughts. Personal thoughts. Personal thoughts. Personal thoughts. All right? Personal thoughts. Second line, original ideas. Second line, original ideas. Second line, original ideas. Original ideas. Third line, expressive language. Third line, expressive language. Third line, expressive language. Expressive language. Expressive language. That's EX. Right? EXPRESSION. Expressive. 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 Expressive language. Then the next line, mental images. Mental images. Mental images. Mental images. Images. The next line, sensory details. Sensory details. Sensory details. Sensory is spelled S. S. Please spell correctly so that we have the same outcome. SENSORY. Sensory details. 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 Sensory details. The next line. Okay, I think that's the end. So the first line is P, so you write that out. The second line is O, so you write that out. The third line is E, so you write that out. The next line is M, you write that out. And the final line is S, write that out. So what do you have? Poems. 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 Okay, we take the next example. So that's acrostic poetry. Kind of poetry where the initial letters in the poem spells a word. All right? Let's take the second line. Let's take the second example, which will spell poetry. Second example, which will spell poetry for us. Now, when you read the poem again, you see that is what a poem should be like. Personal thoughts, like what do you think? All right? Original ideas. The ideas come from you because the language is fresh and all of that. And then expressive language. Expressive language still comes because the language is how you feel. And then mental images. Poets usually write using imagery. All right? You study imagery under elements of poetry. And we have types of imagery like tactile imagery, visual imagery, and the others. And then you have sensory details, details that appeal to the senses as well. So when you put that together, that's what the poem should be. And then the initial letters gives us what we have been trying to talk about, which is poems. All right. The next one, first line. We want to spell poetry now. Putting words. First line, putting words. Putting words. Putting words. The next line, On paper too. On paper too. On paper too. Next line. On paper too. Next line. Express in part. Express in part. Express in part. Part is spelled P-A. Part is spelled P-A-R-T. Express in part. Next line. Thoughts from me. Thoughts from me. Thoughts from me. Thoughts from me. Next line. Write to. Write to. Write to. R-I-G-H-T. Write to. Then the final line. Your heart. Your heart. Your heart. Your heart. So you have putting words on paper to express in part thoughts from me, right to your heart. Okay, so take the first letter of the first line. Take the letter of the second line. Take the letter of the third line. All right, the first letter for the first line is P. Then the second one is O. The third line is E. The fourth line is T. Fifth line is R. And the final line is Y. What does that give you? Poetry. So that, again, is an instance of acrostic poetry. Now, what you should do is to make an acrostic poetry with your first name. You can make an acrostic poetry with your first name. Your first name. Okay, so think about that. Then we'll get it towards the end of the class. The one that's so good will be uploaded. All right? Okay. For instance, if your name is Faith, then you write an acrostic poetry that at the end of the day will spell faith, but then at the same time we also know what faith is all about. So it's not only to spell it, but the essence must be there too, right? The same thing with peace and joy. All right? So you can try that in the course of the class. Right? Panegyric poetry. Panegyric poetry. Panegyric poetry. Panegyric is spelled P-A-N-E-G-Y-R-I-C. Panegyric poetry. Panegyric poetry is a prose poem. It's a prose poem. It's a prose poem. Praise. The prose poem, which has a formal and a public outlook, which has a formal and a public outlook, and is often used to eulogize kings, nobles, and eulogize, praise, often used to eulogize persons of noble birth, like kings, like queens, people in palaces, in courts of kings. Narrative poem. Narrative poem. Narrative poem. Narrative poem. A narrative poem tells a story. A narrative poem tells a story. A narrative poem tells a story. Lampoon. 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 That's another type of poetry. What else do you want to hear about narrative poetry? It tells a story. And that ends it. Okay? So, any poem that tells a story is a narrative poem. Lampoon. 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 It should be noted that lampoon can be poetry, it can also be prose. Lampoon can be poetry, it can also be prose. Lampoon can be poetry, it can also be prose. So it's not limited to the poetic genre. It is noted for its satiric tone. It is noted for its satiric tone. For its satiric tone. It says satiric means the satire. Okay? Satiric tone. Satiric means the satire. A work of art that ridicules human foibles in order to correct them. And it is directed at individuals or institutions. 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 Like caricature, lampoon usually criticizes the appearance and character of the individual. Like caricature, the lampoon usually criticizes the appearance and the character of the individual. That means that the criticism of the individual's appearance is done so as to infer the character of the individual. It's not just for fun that the individual's appearance is brought to ridicule. That critique of the appearance is meant to imply a moral weakness, all right, or a character flaw. For instance, if the ears of an individual are criticized, it might be that the person is insensitive to what people say, do not listen to the people, or is disobedient to the parents. Okay? So the person might say that though you have a fan for an ear, you don't listen to what people say. You know the ear word. Right? So what's the big ear for? What do you have the big ear for? All right? So the criticism that at the ear is to talk about something wrong around or surrounding that organ. All right? Like, there was a time, late 2015, when somebody's face is usually used and the head is coconut head. All right? So, a very popular person, they will use his face and then the head of the person will be coconut to show that there's nothing inside. All right? So the satire directed at the head was to criticize something about the person's intelligence. All right? I'm one of the leaders of the people. Okay. Then let's look at the satirical poem. Satirical poem. A satirical poem. A satirical poem. A satirical poem ridicules its object's weaknesses in order to correct them. Because that is what satires do. Satirical poem ridicules its object's weaknesses in order to correct them. In order to correct them. Then we also have dramatic poetry. Dramatic poetry. Dramatic poetry combines the characteristics of drama with poetry. Combines the characteristics of drama with poetry. Dramatic poetry combines the characteristics of drama with poetry. So, dramatic poetry is usually performed. Dramatic poetry is usually performed, right? Performance is what brings out the essence of the poem, makes it dramatic. So you must know the centrality of performance in oral literature. So whenever drama is mentioned, performance is implied. Performance is the essence. So what makes the poetry dramatic is that it is what? It is performed. It is performed. Then we have haiku. Haiku, the haiku. The haiku. Haiku is spelled H-A-I-K-U. The haiku. The haiku. H, not H. H-A-I-K-U. Right? The haiku. The haiku. You get it? Good. The haiku is a Japanese poem. The haiku is a Japanese poem. The haiku is a Japanese poem organized in 3 lines. Organized in 3 lines. That's just 3 lines. The haiku is a Japanese poem. That's a Japanese origin. It's made up of 3 lines and 17 syllables. And 17 syllables in all. The first line has 5 syllables. The first line has 5 syllables. The second line has 7 syllables. And the third line has 5 syllables. 5, 7, 5. What's a 5, 7, 5? 5. Yes, that's your lucky number. All right. The first line has 5 syllables. The second line has 7 syllables. And the third line has 5 syllables. The haiku can also be called hokku. The haiku can also be called hokku. H-O-K-K-U. H-O-K-K-U. Hokku. Its major characteristics is that it is epigrammatic. And terse in style. It's epigrammatic and terse and terse in style. Terse is spelled T-E-R-S-E. It is epigrammatic and terse in style. Have you ever heard of the epigram? So it's epigrammatic and terse. That means it is short. I already said that it has 3 lines. So epigrammatic then means short. And another characteristic of the epigram is that it is witty. All right. So when we say it is epigrammatic, it means it is short and witty. All right. It is terse in style. T-E-R-S-E. That means using only few words. Using only few words, which is what poetry is known for. It's epigrammatic, it is short and witty, it is terse, T-E-R-S-E. That means it uses few words, select few words. All right? It captures the emotional and spiritual response of a poet to a natural object in the environment. It captures the spiritual and emotional response of the poet to a natural object in the environment or to nature itself. The haiku usually captures the emotional or spiritual response of a poet to an object in an environment. So, in my notes, I selected an example of a haiku written by Matsuo Basho. Written by Matsuo Basho. Matsuo is spelled M-A-T-S-U-O. M-A-T-S-U-O. Basho is spelled B-A-S-H-O with an accent on top of the O. The poem is by the title, the poem goes by the title, The Old Pan. The Old Pan. P-O-N-D, the Old Pan. P-O-N-D, the Old Pan. Pan, the Old Pan, the Old Pan. A small body of still water. All right? Pan. Pan. A small body of still water. First line, an all silent pond. First line, an all silent pond. Second line, a frog jumps into the pond. Second line, a frog jumps into the pond. Third line, splash, as exclamation sign after splash. All right, splash, an exclamation sign after the splash. Exclamation sign after the splash. And then you have silence again. Silence again. Silence again. No, still that line. Still that line. It has 3 lines. And that's the third line. So after that splash, you have silence again, still on that line. All right? So, an all silent pond, a frog jumps into the pond, splash, silence again. That is the poem, just that. Just that. 3 lines, 17 syllables. Talks about a natural object in a natural environment and how the poet feels about it, and that's it. Okay? Then we have Tezarima. 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 T E R Z A. T E R Z A. Teza. Rima. R-I-M-A. 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 Tezarima. This poem has an Italian origin. This poem has an Italian origin. This poem has an Italian origin and is a poem composed of tercets. Composed of tercets. Poem is composed of tercets. Tercet. T-E-R-C-E-T-S. Tercet. Tercet. T-E-R-C-E-T-S. Tercet. That's stanza of 3 lines. Stanza of 3 lines. Tercet. The Tezarima has an Italian origin and is a poem composed of tercets with a rhyme scheme. A-B-A. B-C-B. C-D-C. D-E-D. 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 And so on and so forth. A-B-A. B-C-B. C-D-C. D-E-D. In that order. A-B-A. B-C-B. C-D-C. D-E-D. So next one should be F-E-F. In that order. You can do it till the end. Following that pattern that you have. Right? Following that pattern of A-B-A. Then you have B-C-B. C-D-C. D-E-D. E-F-E. All right, E-F-E. And so on and so forth. All right. Then we have sinking. 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 Sinking is spelled C-I-N-Q-U-A-I-N. Sinking. C-I-N-Q-U-A-I-N. Sinking. 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 So the Sinking is an American poem. The Sinking is an American poem. The Sinking is an American poem invented by Adelaide Crapsey. Adelaide Crapsey. Adelaide is spelled A-D-E-L-A-I-D-E. Crapsey is spelled capital C-R-A-P-S-E-Y. So it is also a short poem like the haiku. It's also a short poem like the haiku. Like the haiku, the sinken is also a short poem. It is short and witty. That means it's epigrammatic in nature. It is short and witty. It is made up of 5 lines. It is made up of 5 lines. With a total of 22 syllables. With a total of 22 syllables. 5 lines with a total of 22 syllables. 5 lines with a total of 22 syllables. The first line has 2 syllables. The first line has 2 syllables. The second line has 4 syllables. The second line has 4 syllables. The third line has 6 syllables. The third line has 6 syllables. The fourth line has 8 syllables. The fourth line has 8 syllables. The fourth line has 8 syllables. And the final line has 5 syllables or 2 syllables. And the final line has 2 syllables. The final line has 2 syllables. So you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 2. The first line has 2 syllables. The second line has 4 syllables. The third line has 6 syllables. The fourth line has 8 syllables. The fifth line has 2 syllables. Total of 22 syllables. It is also called a syllable sinken. It's also called a syllable sinken. We have an example. We have an example of a sinken. First line, springtime. First line, springtime. First line, springtime. Second line, fresh smelling air. Fresh smelling air. Fresh smelling air. Third line, play in the rain and sun. Play in the rain and sun. Play in the rain and sun. Fourth line, crisp, comma, crisp, comma, crisp, comma, crisp, comma, C-R-I-S-P, crisp, comma, cool air feels good on my skin. Cool air feels good on my skin. And final line, the last line, happy, happy, happy. So you have springtime, fresh smelling air, play in the rain and sun, crisp, cool air feels good on my skin, happy. The next point we want to look at is the didactic point. 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 D-I-D-A-C-T-I-C. Didactic. Some people say didactic. So it's free variation. Didactic, didactic. D-I-D-A-C-T-I-C. Didactic poem. Didactic poem. A didactic poem aims to teach moral lessons. Didactic poem aims to teach moral lessons. If a work of art is described as didactic, it means that it teaches moral lessons. Teaches moral lessons. All right? So the didactic poem teaches moral lessons. All right? Good. Then we have the clary hue, the clary hue, the clary hue, the clary hue, the clary hue. CLE, CLE, RIHEW, CLE, RIHEW, CLE, RIHEW, the clary hue. This is a humorous four-line poem. This is a humorous four-line poem. Humorous four-line poem. It's a humorous four-line poem. With the rhyme scheme AABB. With the rhyme scheme AABB. With the rhyme scheme AABB. AABB. Right? The subject matter is usually about a person. 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 The clary hue has as its subject matter an individual. All right? The poem was invented by Sir Edmund Claryhue Bentley. Sir Edmund Claryhue Bentley. Sir Edmund Claryhue Bentley. Sir Edmund Claryhue Bentley. Bentley is spelled Bentley. Bentley. He lived between 1875 and 1956. He lived between 1875 and 1956. He lived between 1875 and 1956. He invented this poem, this type of poetry, when he was only 16 years old. He invented this type of poetry when he was only 16 years old. Because the clary hue is about a person, it is biographical in nature. It is biographical in nature. Because the clary hue is about a person, it is biographical in nature. It is biographical in nature. It is biographical in nature. That means it tells the life story of a person. One of its major characteristics is to mention the name of the person in the first line. One of its major characteristics is to mention the name of the person in the first line. To mention the name of the person in the first line. We have an example here. We have an example here. We have an example here. First line. First line. Sir Humphrey Davy. Sir Humphrey Davy. Sir Humphrey Davy. Humphrey is spelled Humphrey. Sir Humphrey Davy. Davy is spelled Davy. Davy, not David. Humphrey Davy. Second line. Abominated gravy. Abominated gravy. Abominated gravy. Abominated is spelled Abominated. Gravy is spelled Gravy. So abominated gravy. Next line. Okay, that second line terminates with a full stop. Next line. He lived in the odium. He lived in the odium. He lived in the odium. Odium is spelled Odium. Odium. He lived in the odium. He lived in the odium. 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 He lived in the odium. And the final line, of having discovered sodium. Of having discovered sodium. Of having discovered sodium. He lived in the odium of having discovered sodium. 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 As in this context referring to salt, because this person discovered salt. So it is a funny way of talking about his life's invention. All right? A funny way of talking about his life's invention. All right, so this is the much we can take for types of poetry. When we meet again next week, we will look at major poetry traditions. All right? Meanwhile, the course rep should come and get the copy of the text that we'll be reading. Good morning, class.